What is going on, guys and girls? My name is Science, and today we're looking at the post-release patch notes for 1.4. Now, these patch notes were just released like 20-30 minutes ago. I wanted to get them out to you guys as fast as possible so you guys could hear my thoughts and then my, opinion on the changes that are coming to the game. Now, there's a lot of changes from the difficulty, New Game Plus, the combat, the what do you call it, the looting of the game, the settings, the narrator. There's a lot of info that we got, a lot of changes that we got coming into the game. So let's just hop straight in and start talking about these changes. So the first thing I want to talk about is the tutorial area. It says, in order to improve the pacing of the earlier parts of the game, we've edited dialogues to be shorter. We've also added more enemies and loot to these areas to better represent the experience later in the game. So now that is a really good change, because really early on you don't really feel yourself exploring or yourself really doing that much into the early parts of the game in the tutorial. It's kind of just go talk to this guy, kill some enemies, get out of the tutorial as fast as possible. Now them adding more enemies and more loot is a good thing to see, because that's going to make players want to explore the areas more before trying to just rush to the tutorial areas, and kind of giving them that pace that, hey, later on, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be exploring. You're going to be opening up every container you basically can to get crafting materials and, different parts to put on your guns and melee weapons. So this is a good thing to see, to get players that are just coming into the game ready for end game and later on in the game what you're going to be doing. With that out of the way, let's get into the narrator. Reduce the amount of gibberish spoken before the narrator starts translating. That's good. Added dialogue setting toggles for gibberish and narrator, allowing players to select if they want to hear the narrator, the gibberish, or both when talking to NPCs. So that is a really, really good change coming into the game. I really didn't like, the gibberish that we were hearing when we were talking to NPCs and so on and so forth. It was just kind of like, it really wasn't like that big of an impact, but it kind of just had that thing in the back of my mind where it was like, well, I really don't, it's just kind of getting me a little bit annoyed, but it's like whatever. So, but having options to toggle them off is a very, very big step in the right direction, I think, for at least the dialogue and stuff like that of the game. Fixed narration of gibberish, playing silently and producing an awkward pause when each corresponding volume setting is set to 0 instead of skipping the sound entirely. That's another good change. Remove the text delay animation when either gibberish or narration is disabled. So let's go into the next thing here. The next thing we're going to go into is difficulty. Difficulty settings. Added extreme difficulty setting when enemy damage and attack rate is further increased. Fixed difficulty settings to not be applied for already spawned enemies. So this is good. Another difficulty setting is what we want to see into the game. The game is too easy. Now, maybe once you get to end game, New Game Plus, and so on and so forth, it won't be that easy, but for majority of the game, it is way too easy. So this is good that we have a new difficulty setting to even test, to go even further beyond and test our builds, and to really give us that hard mode difficulty, that setting that I want, and I know that a lot of people in the community wanted to see. This is a really good change. So let's go to New Game Plus. Opened up all class perks for New Game Plus games. When starting in a New Game Plus, the player will now be able to unlock perks from all classes. So this is huge right here. Right off the bat, us able to unlock all class perks once we start a New Game Plus is insane. This opens up a whole plethora of new builds, new options. It's this way that, we don't have to reset characters, lose progress. This is very good. I know a lot of people don't like to reset and make multiple characters and play through the game just to kind of get a little bit of different builds, So being able to play through the game, have this class perk still off the initial to where it makes classes unique, and then once you beat the game and you're just trying to go for fun builds, try to make your builds OP as possible, and try new and different things, being able to actually unlock all your class perks or all class perks from all classes when you're in a New Game Plus, so this way you don't have to recreate characters to test new builds out, is very, very good to see into the game. This is a really good change that I think a lot of people will be happy about, and I know that I'm happy about this, and it's going to make, like I said, making new builds and just making the game a lot more enjoyable. So this change is really, really good. So next, let's get into the settings. Add a motion blur slider to the settings. That is a huge thing right there. I'm glad that they did that. Like I said, motion blur is horrible. I don't know why devs even add it to the game, or at least if you do add it to the game, make an option where you can turn it off. So I'm glad that they put in a slider so we can slide the motion blur down and hopefully turn it all the way off. Fix of the camera setting auto adjust player also applies for combat. If turned off, the camera will no longer try to frame enemies while in combat. So that's good. Gives us a little more, free will, a little more, camera control. So that's good. Fix depth of field toggle not being applied in dialogues. That's also good. Sometimes, like I said, depth of field is kind of like in dialogues, but that's good right there. Now let's get into the items and loot. Increased chances that items found have a level requirements closer to the player's actual level when found. Players will still be able to find items with higher level requirements, but the level is now taken into account. So this is huge. Again, this allows us to kind of farm and not worry about getting weapons that are below our levels. This is one of the things that the game lacked, in my opinion. It was like one of the big minuses is that your loot that you were finding were off level. Now, finding loot that's higher level is fine because you're going to be leveling up and using that loot, and it's going to be stronger, right, than the loot that you have, just say level 20 and you have a level 25 gun. Obviously, that 25 gun is probably going to be stronger than your level 21, depending obviously on rarity and perks, stuff like that. But this allows us to now always get gear on our level and then find gear higher level. This is a huge thing that a lot of games like this don't do properly, and I'm glad that the game is finally now putting that in to where loot will be on your level, but we're able to still find higher level loot. This is, like I said, this is huge. This is something that Borderlands 2 in particular had a very tough time doing, and they've corrected it and fixed it in Borderlands 3. So I'm glad that this game kind of took inspiration from Borderlands 3 and did the same thing, because this is something I think all games like this should incorporate and should have into their games. It just makes the game a lot more enjoyable when farming. Remove common item loot drops from high-level loot crates. That's nice. And reduce the amount of healing items that the player will find from crates and defeated enemies. You were finding a lot of healing items, so I'm fine with that change. It's not really that big of a deal, in my opinion. We call it increased base damage from melee bodies, handles, and add-ons by approximately 5%. Reduce base damage from ranged bodies, muzzles, and grips by approximately 5%. So this right here, I don't know why they would reduce the base damage from ranged bodies, because once we get to endgame, at least what I've been told and what I've seen some people in the community say, that already at like New Game Plus, that are like already fighting level 50 plus enemies, is range starts to fall off at endgame, because with melee you can just put points into strength as well as your crit. So you have two different attributes that you can scale your melee damage with, right? Well, with range, we don't have a thing like strength where we can put points into to increase range damage. All our damage comes from our weapons, so it's like reducing the damage we already have makes it to where endgame we're going to be doing less damage than we already are doing now, and it's already tough endgame with range builds, so why would you, reduce our damage even more? Like, I don't understand that. But, I mean, we'll see how it plays out, and we'll see how it keeps going further down the line. Fixed resistance stats not being applied for crafted gear when adding add-ons. That's fine. That's a little bit of a bug that needed to be fixed. I'm glad they did that. Reduce gear add-on resistance and critical chance bonuses. Ensure that the quest reward diver's helmet will no longer drop as a random loot. I haven't really seen that bug right there, but I'm glad that they did that. And then reduce the gear add-on resistance and critical chance bonuses. I don't know how I feel about that. The critical chance bonuses definitely were insane. You could get like a 50 to 60% critical chance, like chest piece, and then basically that's all you were running for critical chance. So definitely, I think that reducing the critical chance bonuses for add-ons is definitely nice. But the resistances, I really don't like that change. But oh well. Remove slots from all protective suits, definitely something that should have been done. Okay, so now let's get into combat here. So I'm not going to be reading all through the combat because there's a lot of different changes, and it'll be like a 30-minute video if I do. So we're just going to kind of go through and highlight some of the changes that I think should be highlighted. Fixed ability damage not being able to inflict critical hits. This is huge right here. This is absolutely huge. So this basically means that now you can be running ability builds that'll actually inflict critical hits. You want to start doing, critical builds and stuff like that, and luck will actually be applying to them, which means that you can actually do end game ability builds, end game like mage builds that'll actually be able to do damage to where, you can actually run them. Because now you really can't, they really don't crit. So it's like they're basically pointless end game. But now them actually being able to crit is huge, because obviously you'll actually be able to run builds now around abilities. So the next one is reduce Deadeye Sharpshooter perk damage multiplier from 2.0 to 1.25 to ensure that it is comparable to other perks. So now Deadeye definitely, that Sharpshooter perk was insane. I mean, like I said, it did so much damage to where like you could literally just run that and be shredding enemies all the way up until endgame. So I definitely think 2.0 down to 1.25 is good. But this mixed with the other perk where, what do you call it, our range damage from bases are reduced by like 5%. It's going to be kind of a hard hit for, what do you call it, range Deadeye builds. So that's going to kind of suck, but we'll have to play with it and kind of see how it feels in game. This might need to be something the community talks about and gets reverted, but we'll have to see. The next thing here is disabled end of combat slow motion camera for short combat scenarios. That's good because like basically every time you get out of what do you call combat, you have a slow motion kind of like effect going on. Which is, and definitely the tougher fights, like the boss fights, stuff like that, and the mini bosses are good because it gives you that like big like reward type, like, oh, I finally completed this, you know, like gives you that achievement. But in shorter combats where you're only fighting 2-3 enemies and you're killing them within 10-15 seconds, kind of gets annoying that every time you go in combat and go out of combat you have a slow motion screen. I'm glad they added that, just another quality of life change. So the next thing is just the range for melee attacks to improve enemy tracking and reduce misses. So this is good. So the range for melee attacks is definitely an issue in the game right now to an extent. For some of the melee is kind of like or for enemies. So it's good that they improved the range for enemies. This way, you know, they can track and stuff like that better. Because melee, when you're fighting, what do you call it, melee enemies, it's kind of easier to kite them. So I'm glad that they kind of changed their AI to make it a little bit harder. Let's get into the next thing. So the last thing we're going to look at here is just kind of a funny thing that they did. So they added ability to slide underneath legs of Titans, which I definitely think was one thing that should have been in the game before. Because I know I definitely tried the first time I fought a Titan, and yeah, kind of disappointed that we couldn't slide under its legs. But now we can, so that's a good thing to add. But that's it for this video, guys. I mean, there's a lot more stuff. There's like world stuff, there, you know, crash fixes, miscellaneous. So if you guys want to go through and look at all these changes that are coming in patch 1.4, I'll have the link in the description so you guys can go in there and look. Just kind of wanted to give you my overview and my thoughts on these patch notes coming into the game. So if you did enjoy the video, definitely hit that like button. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm, gets my videos out there to more people. And if you want to see more videos like this and want to get notified when videos go live, definitely hit that subscribe button. I've also made a community Discord, so if you guys want to join up there, you know, talk with the community, ask me some questions about the game or anything in general, I'll have the link for that in the description as well in the comment section. But that's all I got for you today, guys, so I do hope you guys have a good rest of your day or night, depending on where you guys live, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace.